On my podcast, I had the pleasure of interviewing one of my really good friends, Justin Bennett. He has just released his brand new book, Level Up Your Finances. And while the podcast is geared towards therapy practice owners and business owners, what we were talking about was completely involving personal finances. And so I wanted to share that complete interview with you here. Enjoy it.
And how are you, Craig?
Yeah, I'm good. We've been connected. So Justin, you're coach, a financial coach. We've been connected for so long. We meet once a month just to talk business and to pick each other's brains. So as you've been writing this book, it's been kind of cool on the back end to just watch. And honestly, it scares me from wanting to write a book because all the work that you've had to put into it over the years. What led you to decide, hey, I'm going to jump out and write a book? What sparked the whole thing?
No, absolutely. It's interesting. As a kid, reading was not on my list of fun unless it was a sports magazine or a video game magazine. I really had zero interest in ever reading. And then in college, I grew an interest in reading. And the more I read books, the more I said it'd be kind of cool to write a book someday. So it's on the proverbial bucket list. And long story short, I just always said I wanted to write a book. And 3 years ago, it's like, you know what? It's time. It's time to write it. I felt like God was pointing me in that direction to write a book. And literally, it was 35 months ago to the day we announced it, from the first words to actually saying, hey, we got a book we want people to check out. We think it will be a life transformational for you. It was about a 3-year process.
Man, which is crazy because it's felt long, but also, again, just being on the backside of it, it doesn't feel like it's been that long, but maybe just I haven't had to go through the trudgery, the pit, the work, and the rewrites and all of that stuff, which another conversation for another day is learning all that is involved in writing a book. In fact, we may have to bring you back to talk about that because I'm sure there's some people listening who maybe that's on their bucket list as well. But tell me about you and your business. I know you, but listeners, tell us about you and what you do and who you are.
No, absolutely, Craig. So I've been now a full-time financial coach for over 15 years, and my heart and my passion is always helping hurting people. I just happen to know a thing or two about money. Where my wife and I, as you'll find in the book, we talk about we had over $100,000 in debt and had a promising banking career. I had worked for Fortune 100 companies all the way down to community banks. And here I am. My banking career is doing awesome, but our finances at home are not doing awesome. And I woke up one day, and I'll never forget getting a yellow pad out going, something just doesn't feel right about my finances. And I wrote it all down and found out, oh my goodness, we're almost $700 short a month. And again, that's not including things like car registrations, Christmas, school supplies, vacations, right? It's just bills. And we're $700 short a month. And I'm like, oh, wow. How is a guy like me with a business degree at that time, about 7 years of banking experience, how are we here? And so I kind of went on a quest to go, how does money work? Because what I'm doing is not working.
Mhm.
And so my wife and I began to find what works. And by a lot of hard work and God's grace, we paid off that $100,000 in debt. And like I said, I've been a coach now for 15 years. Part of the time we were still getting out of debt as a coach. And then we got out of debt, and now we're out of debt on that. And my heart and passion is so many people want help with their finances, but they don't know where to turn to. And what I'm convinced of, Craig, and you probably are too, because you're a coach and you understand this, I am convinced everyone needs a coach. And the reason why is no one is disciplined in every area of life. Every one of us is disciplined in one or two areas, but most of us aren't disciplined in money. And what I've discovered, you can go to a podcast, which is great, or a book like I have, or other people have in classes. But oftentimes, having that accountability, someone walking alongside you, helping you where things don't make sense, cheering you on when you're doing a good job, pick you back up when you've made a mistake. And I've just really learned that with accountability and coaching, it can help take people who never thought it was possible to get out of debt and gain what we call financial freedom and do that. And that's just my passion, is helping people who feel like they failed to go from failure to freedom.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you're right. And I think even the audience here is therapists, so they completely agree with that. Everybody needs somebody mentality, and that, there's so many barriers even internally that can prevent us. I had one of my coaches, because we all need coaches, who helped me realize that money managing money is a skill. It's a skill that we are not born with. That's not innate to us. No one is just suddenly born knowing how to invest in their retirement and manage their money well and pay off debt. So it's a skill that needs honing and crafting, and we all need that support. And somebody just needs to teach us those skills, and that's what you've been doing. And it's incredible to see just the lives you've changed. I think I saw your book says over $10 million in debt paid off. Is that right?
Yeah, and that's just during the sessions when they're my client. Often clients, after a period of time, they kind of go on their own. And what's been so neat as we've announced the launch of our book, I have had a multitude of past clients from many years email me, message me going, "Hey, I haven't told you, but we're actually debt free now." I've had some clients go, "We've even paid off the house." I'm like, "Whoa!" And so it's just been neat. I mean, I hear that all the time, but because of the book launch, we've actually heard even more stories of people that I haven't heard from in a while. So it's just a lot of fun hearing people, years later, how this message has still impacted them.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So your book, Level Up Your Finances, I'm a huge believer that everyone needs to find their own money journey. And so I love hearing different perspectives on personal finances. There's so many gurus, people who've written books, who have YouTube channels, who have podcasts. And so I'm all about, let's find what methodology works for each individual. So tell me about Level Up Your Finances. What's in that book? What is your approach? What is it going to teach people? Maybe they haven't heard elsewhere, or maybe reinforcing things they've heard before too. Yeah. Talk to me about what will people find when they pick up the copy of the book?
Craig, that's a great question because you already know this. A lot of what I do is right akin to Dave Ramsey. My running joke is the only difference between Dave and I is I've got more hair and he's got more money. And so I'm like, how do I write a book that's not Dave Ramsey 2.0?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't need to be the next financial expert. We've got enough of those out there. So what can be different that other financial books either don't touch a lot on or don't touch at all on? So the first part of the book goes through your how to's because we still got to know the how to's. How do we budget, right? How do we save? How do we get out of debt? But the other half of the book focuses a lot on how do we stay committed when the going gets tough?
Mm.
And if and when we need accountability, what does that look like? And accountability is one of those words. It's kind of like going to the dentist. And if there are any dentists listening, I'm not picking on you guys, but most people, when they hear dentist, they go, well, same could be true with accountability. It's like, I know I could use it, but I don't know, right? And so we really try to take the shame or the guilt away of getting accountability because there are stories throughout the entire book on every income level: single, married, widowed, divorced, parents of kids, large incomes, small incomes, average incomes, of just how getting some accountability in life can be all the difference maker. I mean, for example, Dave popularized the debt snowball.
Mm-hmm.
I bring up the debt snowball, and some of the earlier readers that got to read it go, "Man, you explained the debt snowball better than Dave." And I go, "No, I didn't. I just said it a little different or a different few word choices, and it clicked this time."
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so that's the book. We talk about 5 levels. We call it the financial freedom pyramid. There are 5 levels to go from not doing well financially to financial freedom. And those 5 levels are awareness, knowledge, commitment, momentum, and freedom. So awareness, we start there. That's where we got to get aware. And as a coach, oftentimes people are unaware of what they really make for an income, what they really
Mm-hmm.
spend. A lot of people that I meet them, they're like, "I'm not a big spender. I don't go to big malls. I don't have a Lexus. I don't go on fancy vacations. Why am I broke?"
Yeah.
Well, once they start tracking their expenses and they go, "Oh my gosh, you and I know this. I didn't know how much I was spending on eating out or online subscriptions or Amazon, fill in the blank." So the first level is getting crystal clear awareness of where we're at. The second level is knowledge. And that's how do we budget? How do we save? How do we get out of debt? So that's where we learn those basic principles so we can obtain financial freedom.
Mm-hmm.
But awareness and knowledge is not enough. And honestly, this is where a lot of people stop.
Yeah.
Next level is commitment. And it's the fork of the road moment. And this fork in the road of, am I really going to follow through on what I learned in the commitment level? And if you make a yes decision to that, every paycheck, every month, you're going to see results, which leads you to momentum. And that's where you get traction. And that traction, you go, yes, this is what I was hoping would happen. The picture's starting to become a reality. And if you keep doing that, that's when you achieve financial freedom. Problem. That all sounds great until, and that's what I call the cycle of regret. The
Mm,
cycle of regret is we get aware, we get knowledge, but you know what? I'm not going to do this or that or this or that. And we begin to reject what we learned in the knowledge level. And so then we go from getting hope to now it's just a wish. And that rejection turns into frustration and despair. And if we don't turn the ship around, now we feel like a failure. Now the shame comes in. Now we go, why bother? And what ultimately ends up happening is then we go, I'm going to work on some other area of my life because I've obviously failed finances again. And then months later, years later, after paycheck to paycheck, still there. Okay, I'm going to try again. And we keep repeating the cycle. So,
mhm.
how do we break the cycle between and bridge the gap between knowledge and commitment? Accountability.
Yeah.
And it's that accountability that really helps. And again, as therapists, they know we can really hold people accountable in a loving, caring way. It's amazing how far we can go when we have accountability.
100%. And I think you're right. Accountability can sometimes come with that stigma, but I think therapists understand that too, because therapy comes with a stigma a lot of times, and there's a lot of fear of even jumping into that pool. But I've seen that so many times that we think it's the knowledge piece. I mean, how many people have we talked to who are like, well, I'm just gonna watch this thing and try it on my own, or I'm gonna listen to this thing and try it on my own, which I'm rooting for them, but we both know that long term change typically doesn't happen just trying it on our own, and that accountability piece really is key. So people listening, those five stages, they've got the knowledge maybe, and now they're at that commitment phase and they're looking for accountability. Where do they start to find that? I mean, is it a friend? Is it obviously a coach? What do you typically recommend, or even in the book, where do you talk about?
That was a thing in the book too. I didn't want to limit it to just coaching. I mean, obviously, I'm going to selfishly say I like coaching, right? I'm a coach, so it's kind of
Right.
hard not to say that. But it can be a friend, a pastor, a mentor. We actually have a whole chapter on what I call the accountability gap. And how do we bridge that gap? And we talk about characteristics to look for accountability. And so to me, it's more about who meets these character qualities of a good accountability partner. And if you can't find it, go get a coach. Another way of saying it is at some point, you have to say, my DIY isn't working.
Mm.
And when you have that moment, then go looking for it. The example I give for me, I feel really good about my ability with money to stay true to my goals and our budget. Eating, on another hand, not so much. So my wife and I, literally years ago, we traded services with a personal trainer. And the first thing she had us do, you guessed it, track what we eat.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what was crazy, Craig? I sounded like my clients. Well, I don't overeat that much.
Right.
And the first day I tracked it, I had a bad day at the office, just bad day. I get home, I'm tired. And what do I do to soothe myself? Is I eat a lot of food before bed.
Mm-hmm.
The next day was a great, fantastic day, and I wanted to end the day on a celebration. Guess what I
Sure.
did celebrate? You guessed it, more food and a lot of it. By like Thursday, I'm like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
wow. I'm like my clients again. I didn't think I was overeating that much. But as I started tracking, an awareness came in
Yeah.
and just blew my mind. But I wasn't going to do that without being nudged by my trainer.
Yes. Yes. I'm the same way. And I took me 37 years to start exercising, and I got stuck in that cycle of regret, which I love that because it just articulates so well the feeling I had where I would get on these kicks where I'd start trying to eat better and work out, and it would last for maybe a month, and then I'm like, well, I don't have abs, so this stinks, and I'd give up. And it wasn't until I finally was like, I need the accountability pieces. I should have known. I'm a coach. I should have known I need somebody to hold me accountable, and I did. And that's where the pivotal change happened, because like you said, it's just forcing you to pay attention and having someone who's there not only because if I'm answering to someone, I'm usually going, I'm a good student, so I like to do my homework and ace the test. But also when things aren't going right, somebody to troubleshoot it with me, I found was huge. It's like, hey, I'm not losing weight as fast as I thought I would, and it's like, okay,
Mhm.
let's look at it. Do we need to adjust your calorie intake? Do we need to adjust your workout regimen? What do we need to fix? That was a game changer because those were the moments where I would have quit had I not had somebody to guide me through what do we do to pivot so that this sticks.
Absolutely. I heard from a guy years ago. There's two things we like to do: is look good and be right. And then when you're paying for the privilege, you're right. You're going to take it more seriously. And I know for a lot of people, whether it's going to a therapist or going to a financial coach or a business coach, there's a lot of, oh my gosh, I'm afraid I'm going to get my hands slapped and like all the shame and the barrier to that, right? But then once they become clients, what they don't realize, and this is what I love about coaching, and I'm sure the same is true of therapists as well, when they do fall down, because they can and they will, the way we approach it, if done right, can be so life giving. So, my favorite client story with this, I'll never forget it. I had this couple I was meeting with, and we met. And as the session began, they go, "You're not going to be very happy with us." I'm like, "Okay." And Craig, you've been there. You know what it is. They got a couple extra things on Amazon. They swiped a credit card when they shouldn't for a car. It wasn't like they went to Vegas, right? It
Mhm.
was just a little overspending, and they feel the guilt and the shame. Well, what I do when that happens is I go, I'm going to say something you weren't expecting. And they go, what? I'm glad you did that. And they're like, what? I go, yeah, I'm glad you did that. You're kidding. I go, well, let me ask you, how does it feel after that decision? Oh, it's horrible. Awesome. Are you going to do it again? Well, no. Okay. What do you need from me? You're not going to yell at me? Well, I can if you charge extra. I might. Um, I go, now, if in 3 months, if we're doing the same thing over and over again, the conversational tone may change. I go, but if you learned your lesson, well, life's the best teacher here. Okay.
Mm.
At the end of that session, Craig, I'll never forget the wife going, can I be honest? I go, what's that? I was so many times tempted to say, we're not coming today. We're just done. I was so ashamed of what we did. I feel so much better how you framed this and show me how to turn this into a win. I cannot wait for the next session. By the way, can I bring my kids so you can personally teach them?
Wow.
Again, the fear of their mistake almost held them back from meeting, but they stepped through. They took the courage to step through. And then, as a coach, like your therapists do, we walked them through. Yeah, that wasn't good, but here's how we can reposition that and rethink that. And it made all the difference in the world for them to keep going, where that would have been a place they would have said, I'm out, I'm done.
Wow. And man, that story really does highlight something that's just kind of, I think I've been aware of, but it's come into mind, feeling like a revelation here. But it's, that it takes time. Like no one, I think the idea is, oh, great. Here's my plan. I'm going to figure out this plan. I'm going to implement it and boom, I'm good with money. We're going to pay off debt and there's going to be no problems. And it's a learning process. I mean, I think of learning the bass guitar and how many sour notes I hit and how much like how hard it was and all these humps that I had to get through. And I'm still learning, I'm still growing, and I've been playing it for 25 years. So I think that's so huge that it's not a failure when you have those bad months. How you react to it, how you recover from it is when you get into that the negative cycle. Are you going to push through again, the accountability to help you push through, but even on your own, are you going to push through or are we going to throw our hands up in defeat and fall back into that cycle? So giving ourselves grace, we're learning how it goes. And that's a win. When we fail, it's a win because we're priming the pump to be successful.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I want to go back to momentum in your pyramid, the five keys. So momentum, that is such a huge piece. But as we talked about falling off of things, how can people get momentum and maintain that momentum? Because I feel like I've done that before, where I've gotten into something, I'm getting some speed, I'm getting some traction, and then I hit a wall, and all of a sudden I'm back to phase one again. And so, do you talk about that in the book with momentum of how to maintain it, or what's your advice on that, or what do you even speak to in it?
Yeah, we talk about what I call overcoming the four thieves of momentum. And there's four thieves that will slow you down. And slow is an acrostic. S is for situational principles. L stands for life circumstances. O for out of gas. And W, weak results. So in the book, we talk about how to overcome each one of those. So I'll give the situational principle ones, for instance, and I got that from a term that's used a lot, situational ethics. And that's where I got the idea of situational principles, because I've seen as a coach where people get started, like you said, they're on fire, they do really good, and then they fall off the wagon. And then they'll blame personality like Dave Ramsey or myself, or in the exercise world, we always hear it as, well, this is not sustainable.
Right.
So what I have is I got a client who's in the story or in the book, and I've got permission to use the story. This couple had over $100,000 in debt. First 6 months, they are crushing it, selling stuff, working extra. They're doing all the stuff we asked to do, and they are paying off debt like it is on fire. They are doing it great. I'm preparing for the day session. I pull up their budget form. To my horror, I see two new car loans, and the credit card went up.
Mm.
And I went, huh, interesting. So we get into the session, and the husband and I are similar personalities, and we gel really well together. And he's like, "Well, did you look at the budget?" I go, "Yep." Well, that whole plan is just unsustainable. I go, "Stop." What the problem is, it's not the plan. There is a principle mismatch.
Mm-hmm.
Your principles aren't lining with these principles, and you're trying to use this process for principles that don't agree. So I gave him a homework assignment. Go on a date, make sure it's in the budget, and determine what are your principles that, when it comes to your personal finances, you are going to stick with. Upon knowing your principles, now get a process and a plan that follows through the principles. Because same thing with diets. And this is where I saw this. And I'm no different, because again, it's something I've always had to work on, is I see people, they find this diet and they get all jacked up and excited about it. In the first 2 weeks, they get all the results that they were hoping for, but they
Mm-hmm.
lose the momentum, and they always come back to not sustainable. And I'm almost convinced every diet I think works.
Yeah.
And but we got to stick with it through the hard parts. And the one way you can stick through it with the hard parts, two things to stick with it: one, obviously accountability, but two, getting your principles to be your principles, not theirs. And these are my things. So, for instance, when I followed Dave Ramsey for the first time, I was a banker. I was giving people debt.
Mm-hmm.
When I said debt is no more, it is off the table. That is how I got out of debt. One of the things was to say debt can no longer be a possibility to do this. And it worked. And so getting those principles assigned, again, is one of the ways to keep the momentum going and not lose it, is by not having situational principles. Instead, getting your principles solid. And then once we know what the principles are, let's find a process and a plan that lines up with those principles.
Man, I love that, because I think personal finance is personal, and I think, I love that you touch on that piece of what is our principles. I can tell somebody, you could tell somebody, getting a car loan just not a financially wise decision. But what do they believe? We could say, here's how the fastest way to get out of debt is don't spend a single dime on anything ever. What Dave says, beans and rice, don't do any of that. You're going to get out of debt fast. But what are their principles? Is that align with their values? Is that align with who they are, their personality? Do they need to strike a different balance? Well, it's giving them autonomy and ownership of their own money journey. They're not doing Justin's money journey. They're doing their money journey. And I think that is completely where momentum can get lost in a lot of when people are doing it on their own or don't have something like your book to guide them through that piece of what does it look like for me? And if my principle is to borrow money on cars, then I guess that's my principle, and we'll go through and we'll help them figure out what that looks like with them. It may not be the best. We might try and discourage it, but
Right?
I think that's key.
Well, and you said a good word there, ownership. When they take ownership, so in chapter 2 of the book, we talk a lot about goal setting. And again, goal setting, that's been something written about. There's lots of ways to do goals, but that's one of the things we talk about. It has to be your goals, not my goals.
Mm-hmm.
I can guide you to what some good goals are. I can draw out of you why those goals should be important for your specific situation. But until you take 100% ownership, and these are my goals, these are my principles, until you do that, it's easy to be wishy washy or, again, have situational principles.
Yeah. And I like that so much. And I think hearing that, hopefully people hear this and it gives them, allows them to sigh and just, release some of the pressure of, I have to do it this way. I have to do the debt snowball. We've come across people who are wanting to pay off debt and they've been trying to do this debt snowball, but maybe they have like this medical debt that's further down on that. We had a client one time who they lost a child and they had this medical debt tied to it. And it was just so emotionally draining that we popped it to the top and we're like, let's pay that off first because it's, and to you, it is a priority to get this thing out of your life. But they were so stuck on, well, this is how we have to do it. This is the way we've been told. Autonomy, ownership, I think is so key. So I'm really glad to hear that you hit on that.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah, awesome. I could pick your brain forever, as you know, but I want to drive people to purchase your book. So as of the release of this episode, we're talking it's releasing next week, but this episode is going to release. The book should be out and available on Amazon. Tell us what, I guess they go to Amazon. We're going to link it in the show notes, but how else can people get in touch with you? How else can we contact you and get some more guidance and help on this?
Absolutely. So if you just go to the website, levelupyourfinances.com, you can buy now through there and it'll take you right to the Amazon link. Boom, there you go. There's also free resources. We just need first name, email. We have a budget builder. We have the financial freedom pyramid checklist and money confidence quiz. How confident are you in your money game? 7 quick questions. Doesn't take that long. And you'll get a score going, how do I rank? And they will walk you through what level of accountability should you consider based on your score. It's really simple. I mean, you can answer it right away. You get email results right away, all free. Go to levelupyourfinances.com to both get your resources and buy the book.
Wow. I can't recommend it enough. I've already pre-ordered mine. I'm ordering some for my whole team here. And I guarantee there's going to be pieces of it that we pull that we're going to start doing it the Justin way with our client. Just to recommend it. I love some of I've already took a copious notes on ways I think we can probably incorporate some of the things you taught. So thank you for sharing your knowledge. Everyone go out and buy the book. I highly recommend it. Probably the best investment you can make in yourself this year.
Awesome, Craig. Thanks so much for having. And again, just love seeing the growth in what you're doing. And thanks for letting me being on here. I appreciate it.